Hello, hello, hello. Hwacha here, and this is Vagrus, or Vagrus? The Riven Realms. It's a post-apocalyptic fantasy RPG where you lead a traveling company around an unforgiving world forsaken by the gods and devastated by an arcane cataclysm. So I played this game a little bit before when I first got it years ago, and I put it on the heaviest difficulty, and I it took me a while to accidentally RNG the first fight, and then I don't know if I was if I had one linear second fight or not, but whatever I did after that, I couldn't beat it, and I just remember I shelved the game for a while, but now I'd like to do a playthrough, a let's play. So I'm gonna just try like the normal difficulty, I think, and so it's very story intensive, though, I think. So bear with me, because sometimes I stumble on my words when I'm reading. Disclaimer: Vagrus is a game that involves a fair amount of reading if it is to be enjoyed and experienced as intended by the developers. It is also a difficult game with little hand-holding, where success is by no means guaranteed. You will probably lose everything several times before getting the hang of leading your traveling company. Vagrus is also a labor of love created by a tiny team that dared dream big with the support of an amazing little community. We are extremely grateful to all those that helped us along the way with constructive criticism. Okay, so I'm going to hold space to play the intro. Hopefully that's not too loud. Okay. Oh, that was too fast for me to read.
The River Realms, they call it.
Oh,
What a
Riven.
fine poetic name for something as rotten and twisted as our land has become. It was not always so. Long ago, the old empire, the noblest and most enduring society created by humankind, spanned almost the entire continent of Zerine, the cradle of man. But after several millennia of progress and incomparable achievements, inevitably, the empire began to fall into stagnation and decadence. Desperately holding on to their privileges and resisting change while trying to avert the collapse of the realm, the emperor and his theocracy took to measures that were worthy of true despots in cruelty. Subjugating weaker realms, enslaving whole nations, strip mining foreign resources, oppressing imperial citizens, war on several fronts, genocide. Eventually, the gods could no longer tolerate such horrors wrought in their name. Foretold by an abundance of divine omens, they descended upon the empire to right its wrongs. Thus, in a chain of dreadful events that became known as the Calamity, they annihilated the empire in a matter of days. The gods then finally saw what they had done in their anger and confusion. It is said that so much grief and shame filled them that they were broken and they left this reality, never to return. The continent and its inhabitants seemed dead, but at length survivors began to crawl out of their hiding holes and faced a land that no longer welcomed them. Arcane anomalies, the fallout of the Calamity, now riddled the continent, and people realized that they had to share their new home with changed and twisted creatures. Terrible beings entered through the cracks in the tapestry of reality, arose to rule over the natives. In time, these new powers rebuilt the fallen empire in their own image, and the River Realms, now godless and vengeful, reincarnated from the ashes. The inhabitants of the land, such as I, now eke out a living under the crushing rule of the new empire. The continent itself constantly resists our every attempt at building a cozy home for ourselves. As travel is dangerous, many ventures specialize in transferring cargo and passengers over bleak and deadly leagues of land. Others try to take everything of value from said travelers, or attempt to find buried treasures among the ruins of the old empire. The leaders of the endeavors are, some say, the bravest men and women of the River Realms. Such a leader is called a Vagrus.
Okay, so it's Riven Realms, and Vagrus is what I will be, the leader? Do I have that one? I think there's one. Oh no, that's the news. Okay, there is something. Okay. Let's see, new game. Select game mode. This choice cannot be altered later. Wasteland mode. This is the way Vagrus was intended to be played by the developers. The setting is cruel, harsh, unforgiving place, and so the game will not pull any punches. Expect a steep difficulty curve and a little to no hand-holding. Save often because you will probably run into dead ends and deaths from time to time. Dissonance mode. This game mode is tailored more towards a narrative experience. Combat management and almost all other aspects of gameplay are less challenging. The result is smoother difficulty at the cost of alignment with the setting, causing a certain dissonance. Achievements are turned off in this mode. Okay, I thought there was more than that. Did I do Wasteland mode and die, like, instantly? Was that bad? Nothing? Okay, well, let's try it.
A Vagrus. What a profession. Daring and savvy, always watching the horizon, always looking for an opportunity, and of course, for what is best for his comitatus, eh? And you are a Vagrus too, are you not? Many of your kind have I seen in my long life as a vagabond. Care to listen to a story about your exquisite occupation, good master? It is a tale of woe and terror, but it is also a tale that is true, as I have seen it with mine own eyes.
Oh, okay, so this must be the intro, right? Tell us your tale, old man. And then it'll play the Pilgrims of the Wasteland?
Wise you are, good master. My tale is of a Vagrus, such as yourself, but one whose fate was cursed and wrought with ill fortune. It all happened a long time ago. 10 years, maybe more. I was but a passenger, traveling rough roads and forgotten ways with this comitatus, south along the feet of the great mountains of the west.
Okay. Let's check out this comitatus.
This comitatus I speak of had fallen under hard times. Perhaps it was due to imperial harassment or unfortunate decisions, or simply bad luck. Hierophants, saint of roads, does not always smile on us mere mortals. But however it came to pass, their coin was drying up, and their opportunities seemed few and far between. One of the last chances their Vagrus saw was to travel to the remote town of Scrapheap and spend their remaining funds to stock up on cheap scrap metal. This metal could be sold for great profit over in the east and south. It wasn't a bad plan, truly, but it was not without risks either.
Okay, so there's definitely, like, trading, right? Winter's Wasteland, standalone story of Vagrus, the Riven Realms. This serves as an introduction to the setting and also a tutorial of the game. It behooves you to read the tutorial text and follow the instructions to gain a better understanding of how the game works. The icon can be clicked in the tutorial windows to show what section it is referring to via a pointer. Although Vagrus is an open world game, due to Pilgrims of the Wasteland being a tutorial, it progresses along a narrow guided path in the beginning and opens up later after the core mechanics have been introduced. You can access the hotkey list in the options where they can be altered too. On the campaign map, your comitatus traveling company also always occupies a node and moves between nodes through paths. Moving along paths cost movement points indicated next to each path. Every in-game day, you have a number of movement points to spend before you need to camp. To move, click on the nearby node and select Move from the Node Radial menu. You can select a node that is further away. The MP cost of moving there will be calculated in the path highlighted. Move to scrap heap. So I can click this. Oh, and it'll just show me. Okay, so indicates how long the currently available supplies of the Comitatus can feed. So we have 7 days of food. Morale 5 of 9. Obedience 8 of 9. Movement points represents how far the Comitatus can travel each day. Each step on the campaign map costs MP. March plus 5% vigor 7. I'm gonna assume, is that pushing past this, or is that people on foot? I don't know. Locked. Traverse. Leadership perk is required to unlock. Okay. So well rested, max vigor 9, plus 1 nutrition. Well fed, max nutrition 9. Ross equals 10 and 1 equals 10. Okay. 23 Bros, 8 Larg, and 5 Changers. Lurg? I don't know. Our cargo we can carry shows the maximum available cargo space in your hold. So we have 300 of over 1,000. Combat strength is 69. The measure of defense power in the crew combat. It is contested against the opponent's combat strength to define the chance of success. Attack each round? MP cost is 6. We're going to move to scrap heap. Most of the story is presented through interactive text called events. Events let you make different choices at each step. Some choices can have a number of consequences, while others have various dependencies. Dependencies mean that you can only pick a certain choice if you have the right prerequisites, skills, perks, characters, and so on. To select a choice, click on it or use 1 through 9 to select the one you like. Who is that? Is that my Vagrus? Vagrus. Having gone ahead of the column with a handful of scouts, you watch from afar as your Kamitata slowly trudges along broken terrain, making its way south ponderously among dormant geysers. All around you, the hills smolder lazily in the perpetual twilight. Are you okay? Javik's voice resonates with sympathy as he appears next to you on the ridge. You nod slowly, but do not look at him. Your gaze lost in the distance where ash cloaks the horizon and the towering mountains to the south and west. You turn to your comms and note his supportive smile. You and Javik have been traveling the realms together for years now. There is no person in the world you trust more than him, except perhaps yourself. I know you feel that your hands are tied, but like I said before, you made the right choice by leading us here. So this is my buddy. What do I want to say? Time will tell, but I still have my doubts. It's a long shot, you know it. There wasn't much of a choice, either this or returning my trading license and hanging myself. It has to work. We cannot fail, not like this. Thank you, but the last thing I need now is clumsy pep talk, even if it's well meant. So, let's see. It's like a very desolate world, right? So I think I'm gonna try and play like a good guy in the midst of it all, right? So let's be nice to my buddy. Javik, that's true, but it's better than just giving up. The crew agrees too. That counts for something, no? It does, yes. Good to know that they still have faith in me as their Vagrus. They are just as desperate as I am. It doesn't change a thing about our predicament, or why should I care? No, let's do this one. They do have faith in you still, Javik says. Should not come as a surprise since you have known and traveled with most of them for years and years. Some founding members of the Comitatus you could trust with your life. But you have heard stories before about Vagri, who have been abandoned for less. Times being what they are, Javik trails off, with Imperials cracking down on us independents more heavily than before, business is tough, everyone knows, and they appreciate your efforts to keep us afloat. Our plan ought to give us another chance. When text in an event is highlighted pale blue, it means that you have found a codex entry. Clicking these opens the codex and navigates you to the entry. So we have a couple. Okay. The plan. You talked your traveling company into this a few weeks ago, but with each step towards the western mountains, more and more of them started to have doubts, such as the way of the road, perhaps. The plan involves a desperate attempt at squeezing a low selling price for metal bits out of an old contact of yours in the town of Scrap Heap. Stocking up on said metal by spending your remaining coin and bringing the cargo down south around the Molten Tongue to Devon via Avernum and Ash. There is a shortage of metal in Devon, and you know several buyers who would give a pretty price for your goods if you can only make it there before many others with a similar cargo do. Such contacts are the boon of the long decades spent on the road, but even if Narbo, that villain, gave you an agreeable price in Scrap Heap, the road is not without its perils. Sneaking through the gap between the dead forest and the Molten Tongue is inviting disaster. So it is not a path many Vagri would risk, and of course, if this fails, you are out of alternatives. Do you think Narbo will help us out? The old scavenger was never famous for his goodwill, Javik wonders. The Codex is a collection of entries you found throughout your travels. Entries contain information about the world and its inhabitants. When you have unread entries, the crystal on the cover of the closed codex emanates light. Entries are displayed in a list on the left. You can search entries and filter them by category using the buttons on the top. Unread entries are marked by a blue icon and appear on top, while already read entries have a gold icon. The text of the selected entry appears on the right. Information in the codex is supplementary. It is there for those who wish to learn more about the Riven Realms. You can choose to close the codex now and continue your journey. You can open it again by clicking on the book in the bottom right hand corner. It's supplementary, but would it benefit us to learn about each town and stuff right now? I don't know. Scrappy is a town-state on the edge of Imperial territory just north of the Molten Tongue and south of the Forest of Shadows. It has been known for its isolation, the outlandish customs that stem from that, and the wealth of scrap metal they deal in, salvaged from the ruins of the fallen kingdom of Devendarthar. Description: in the smoldering shadow of the great mountains of the west, Scrap Heap rarely sees sunlight, as the skies are forever ashen and overcast. The air is scorching hot and dry as a desert. Earthquakes are common, their distant rumble a constant reminder of the region's volatile nature. Most of the time, Scrap Heap is engulfed in smoke and ash, and a constant reddish twilight is upon it from the nearby volcanoes. Inhabitants must wear scarves and masks to aid their breathing. Surrounded by a low wall, the town is indeed made of scrap and junk, mostly stone with metal scraps, as well as leather and cloth awnings. A single tall tower stands high above the town on a hill, housing a beacon that aids scavenger teams in their return, called the Iron Tower. This fortress is home to the town's ruling court, led by its sovereign, a tyrant by tradition. Other mounds of old scrap and debris form hills around the inner town. These are the warrens. And although oh boy. And although there are less densely inhabited they are less densely inhabited, a lot of scrap heaps pour or hold up in the shacks beneath these waste piles. History. Well, after the calamity, people began flocking to the Molten Kingdom of of Vendarthar, formerly the ancestral home of all dwarves on the continent. They sought to plunder any riches that remained there, and especially the rare metal that is still in relative abundance in the confines of that lost realm. Because Vendarthar is now extremely volcanic and volatile, the scavengers did not dare dwell in it, only in its close proximity. Thus, The settlement of Scrap Heap was founded out of necessity. The town is not under imperial jurisdiction because the Empire never considers existence in the savage, barely inhabitable mountainside important. Instead, they simply let scavenger gangs and comitati gather and sell excuse me, the precious scrap metal and reclaimed ore in one of the border towns closer to Scrap Heap. Still, some trade houses sometimes set up a temporary compound there, only to get robbed and driven out months later. Scrap Heap was taken over by the infamous Heap King, whose rule saw the rise of the Iron Tower and its protectors. Little more than a gang lord who organized the previously chaotic and warring work teams into a hierarchy, the Heap King became a legendary renegade whose mockery of a traditional feudal society shaped Scrap Heap into what it is today. Alright, so that's... oh my gosh, there's a lot here. Vagrus. A Vagrus is the person who leads comitatus. The original meaning of the word is vagabond. This leader is considered a venturer, a wanderer, and a captain. Vagri have been elected or simply own most of the comitatus due to their wealth. Most people consider them necessary since they often bring news and trouble, but also vital to the survival of distant, isolated places as well as to the flow of commerce in the empire. Most Vagri are fiercely independent, though some work exclusively for a trading house. Okay, so... excuse me, I'm drinking coffee. I think our goal would probably be to... so, of course, this land is covered in bandit stuff, right? But we should probably be, like, lawful when it comes to dealing with the Empire and be good to our comitatus people, at least. Not have slaves. And try and play it that way. I don't know about the trading houses. I don't know if we'll have to side with one of those, right? But probably. Because look at this. Oh boy. Another big page. Okay. Trade houses are millennia-old institutions, essentially merchant guilds that wield a great deal of influence. Houses have their own traditions, hosts of loyal retainers and agents, lobbyists in the Senate, outposts around the continent, and even mercenary armies. Typically, each great trading house has one or more monopolies, but the scene tends to shift radically from year to year. Contemporary Zirin? I forget how they pronounce that. Contemporary Zirin is characterized by many isolated settlements divided by vast and perilous lands. This is one of the main reasons why mercantilism rose to utmost importance. Trade and communication would be virtually impossible without the involvement of comitati, armed caravans that traversed the wasteland. It did not take long before the merchants started to flock together to protect their interests. Trading houses represent the pinnacle of merchant organizations. Most often, they are run by a council of merchants, a family of aristocrats, or some other interest group. Successful Vagri can hope to join these trading houses, gaining their benefits and protection along with the obligation to pay a considerable tribute and abide by their internal code of conduct that governs most aspects of trade. Though typically an imperial institution, a trading house can belong to almost any culture these days, and many historians claim that the first ones ever were created by merchants from Tark. The Molten Tongue. The Molten Tongue is the name of the region in western Zirin. It is a gigantic, constantly flowing lava river. Description. The Molten Tongue is a gigantic forking lava river that covers a vast volcanic plain and hill region at the foot of Vendarthar, the Molten Kingdom. Volcanic ash from the nearby mountains covers the western sky day and night. Ash and storm clouds gather over the mountains and are lit from below by the fires among the peaks. The active volcanoes keep spitting meteors and liquid fire in the distance. Many small and large lava lakes dot the region, and the ground and stones are either covered in soot or show angry red colors. The giant lava river distorts the air from a distance, and closer to it the heat is unbearable. History. Before the calamity, The Vendar Thar was the kingdom of all dwarves on the continent, a land unmatched in technological advancements, inventions, and ambition. One of the oldest of the dwarf royal lines, kings of Vendar Thar were sympathetic to humans and aided them throughout the Second Age, then became fast friends by the Third Age. The Inventor Kings showed early Imperials the art of metalworking and stonemasonry, helped build their ancient cities, and taught them how to mine ores. Vendar Thar itself was abundant with metal and precious stones, so much so, in fact, that in their unmatched pride, the inventor kings of the late Third Age forgot the wise ways of their forefathers and started refashioning their massive stone fortresses and arcing bridges from iron. By the end of the age, gigantic monuments and vast cities made entirely of metal stood among and atop the great mountains of the west. Between them, metal roads were erected high above the canyons and valleys. When the calamity hit, the slumbering volcanoes of Vendar Thar burst with cataclysmic force and melted the iron cities and roads, killing millions in minutes. Large rivers of lava emerged. The sky became ash, the air poison. The few that survived fled the kingdom and became a homeless, wandering, disgruntled people with no hope or future. The area east of the mountains became no man's land of volcanic ash and lava. The many lava flows in the central mountain range and most prominent volcanoes merged into a single giant lava river that flows east and travels leagues before gathering into lakes of magma or slowing down and cooling. This river is the Molten Tongue. Not much can live near the lava formations, but that does not mean that fools don't try to travel there every now and again. Due to the calamity, the land is cursed to bleed lava forever, so the Molten Tongue has been spilling forth over 1,000 years. Alright, that's pretty neat. Actually, I kind of like the world building in this so far. The Jagged Waste. One of the largest desert regions in the whole empire, the Jagged Waste is named after the spiky, sharp rock formations and outcroppings that cover most of its arid surface. Intersected by the Emperor's Road, the waste sees quite a lot of travel. It is home to many odd beasts, but it is feared the most for the terrifying rock storms that can eat the flesh off people in a matter of seconds. Well, that sounds fairly unpleasant. Description. Subregions might differ vastly, but in general the waste is a rocky desert dotted with various formations of solid rock. Saw-like ridges and deep ravines are very common, as are solitary spike-like stones. The soil and the stone have a distinct washed-out yellow or bone color. Skies are mostly clear, but often have an orange tint due to the sun's cruel power and the constant dust in the air. Winds frequently become brutal without warning, carrying pebbles with speeds that turn them into tiny projectiles. The strongest rock storms are quite rare, but they live vividly in the imaginations of travelers due to their nasty reputation. History. The Jagged Waste was formed during the Calamity, and it has been constantly carved by the ceaseless powerful winds ever since. The Empire reclaimed the territory toward the end of the Restoration period, but was fairly disregarded until later when the demand for obsidian rose to previously unseen heights. Additionally, it was soon discovered that the region has quite a lot of untapped resources like crystals, marble, and salt. Those turned the Jagged Waste into one of the most valuable imperial holdings north of the Cepus Mountains. The Waste saw a lot of battles during the Dragon War and the Orc War, the two greatest conflicts on the continent since the Calamity, but it remained under imperial control for the most part, with the notable exception of the area directly bordering the Dragonlands, which the Empire lost to the Dragon Lords. Since the discovery of valuable resources and the Waste's strategic importance, many settlers and outposts have sprung up along and near the Emperor's Road and around said assets, including the cities of Devon and Torzag's Shelter, some of the Empire's largest cities by the present day. However, the western segment of the Waste has never colonized in earnest by Imperials for various reasons, and it remains a land of relative lawlessness and dubious opportunities. So, that's going to have to be a place where you're going to have to go to, right? We gotta find crystal, marble, and salt. The Imperial Calendar. Even though many of the continent's diverse cultures maintain a calendar of their own, every realm also keeps the imperial calendar to some extent. Especially in the field of commerce and diplomacy, the current calendar was created at the end of the Triumvirate War around 150 post-Calamitat, based on the reformed calendar of the twin emperors Caldarius and Sendanius from the 22nd century anti-Calamitat. Calamitat? With some notable differences that have to do with the changed perception of the elder gods and their spheres. It also uses a new starting point, the calamity, also called the new founding, and differences between pre-calamity and post-calamity times, called anti-calamitat, calamitat, and post-calamitat, abbreviated as AC and PC. The year is made up of 12 months, each 30 days long, and thus a year is exactly 360 days long. The months are as follows. Number 1, Sagorus. Originally was named after the elder god of war, Arcus, who was also the defeater of Frost and liberator of Solus, the sun god. It was also the first month after winter when traditionally war could be conducted. Now it is named to honor the new war god, Surgorod, and refers more to how this month usually marks new imperial military campaigns. 2. Leto. The name means slaying or smiting, referring to the end of the winter. The old name was Radis, referring to the war god's victory over the cold and return of warmth and radiance it brought. Number 3, Caldarius, named after one of the twin emperors of circa 2200 AC, who brought about a golden age and rehashed the calendar to be simplified, previously called Tribus. 4, Sendanius, named after the other one of the twin emperors of circa 2200 AC, who brought about a golden age and rehashed the calendar to be simplified, previously called Quatus. Number 5, Obscurus, meaning to hide or to make disappear, is a reference to Balor Gal, god of lies. It used to be called Octifius, meaning fruit-bearing, fertile, and joyful, which originates from pre-Doramirian times, but was changed to avoid the mention of fertility and weather. Nerudus, named after the Emperor Nerud, who ruled just before Valkyrius around 1350 AC, and was considered the greatest champion of the Senate, primarily for giving almost complete power to the Senate. The month's old name was Sextus, meaning sixth, since it used to be the sixth month in the oldest calendar. 7. Zivarium, named after the house Vagrus, which is the noble house of both the first emperor and the immortal emperor. The month was previously called Zunes, after Zuna, the prime goddess and the wife of Zin, as this was the most bountiful month blessed by her, but was changed after the calamity to avoid mention of the elder gods. Vendemius means wine or grape gathering. This was the primary month of vintners, and its name originates from pre-Doramirian times. The 12 wanted to change it, but the Senate managed to protect the name, and since wine production was revived in the province, the liches let it go. And then number 9, Astamort means death of warmth or death of year. It used to be the last month of the year in pre-reform times. Number 10, Vigilus. The name means wake or vigilant, referring to the silent time of the year, nature sleeping, but man staying awake in the darkness. Its days were part of the long single winter month, which was separated into 3 months by the twin emperors. 11. Vel means veil, originates from the time from the Atruan unification with the survivors of Daramar. It was called Velem Gelis, the Veil of Frost. It used to be the sole winter month with about 90 days. Later, its excess days were given over to the 2 new added months. Facta means procedure. Number 12. A time when the new senators are elected, the previous year is evaluated, and preparations are made for the new year. It was originally called Zelfacta, meaning thawing, and its days were part of the long single winter month. Factor was added by the twin emperors, the name shortened creatively by the 12 to avoid callbacks to actual seasons. Wow, okay, so this is really in depth, and forgive me for, all the reading, but that's going to be a big part of this game, right? Is a lot of reading. More reading than combat and stuff, right? Alright, let's continue this. Every month has 5 weeks, each with 6 days. The days are as follows. Oh my gosh. 1 Dia Solis, the day of the sun, referring to Solis, the old god of sunlight, one of the only old names kept after the 12th campaign of censorship. Number 2. Dia? Is it Dia or Dia? Or would they just pronounce it Day? I'm not sure. Let's say Dia. Dia Naya refers to Naya, the great moon, the largest of the 3. 3. Dia Imperius, the day of the prime god Zin, in old times, changed after the rise of the 12 to refer to the immortal emperor. 4. Dia Mortis, the day of the prime goddess Zuna, in old times, changed after the rise of the 12 to refer to death and Ashkul. 5. Dia Albia refers to Albia, the pale moon, the second largest of the 3. 6. Dia Urkel, named after Baal-ur-Kal, referring to the god's aspect of entertainment. This is the designated day for the markets in similar communities, as well as a day of resting and recreation in cities. Okay, so 12 months, 30 days, 5 weeks, 6 days. So it's just a nice round number, right? That was a lot of reading for a calendar, but I guess it's necessary. Oh my god, we have a lot of reading left. I wanted this to be a let's play, but I don't know if people are gonna enjoy me reading all this stuff. So I guess this first video is gonna be a long reading. Long reading. My apologies. But let's keep going, I guess. The Empire. Let me take a sip of my coffee before it gets cold. The Empire is the largest and most populated country on the continent of Zeren. Is made up of provinces, tribute-paying regions overseen by a governor, with the Heartlands as the center of the realm and Zeren City as its capital. At its peak, the Empire ruled almost the whole continent and had pristine relations with the elder races that inhabited the rest of it. After the calamity, during which most of Zeren was utterly destroyed and scarred forever, the new empire rose from the ashes and began a 1,000-year-long march to vengeance and dominance. History. The Empire is the oldest, most lasting society created by humans. It was founded during the Third Age and flourished under the rule of a long line of emperors. Its rise was guided by the Elder Gods, a pantheon of creator deities. Imperials learned from the dwarves and elves incorporating their technology and magic, using their own inventiveness and open-mindedness. At its peak, the Empire was the greatest society in the world. This time came under the rule of the immortal emperor, who began his rule about 1,000 years before the calamity. Then the calamity struck. The elder gods descended from the heavens and unleashed all hell upon Imperials, killing without mercy. Only a few distant lands survived unscathed, but most of Azurin was devastated by uncontrollable arcane energies. The Emperor personally protected the capital and the Heartlands quite successfully, but he himself was thrust into a comatose state and has been slumbering ever since. The 12 former high priests and now undead sorcerers overtook rule in the Emperor's name. The new empire was thus rebuilt from the ashes with a new pantheon of gods, undead legions, and the vengeful heart. Imperials set out to reclaim what used to be theirs. The next centuries were steeped in conflict and bloodshed, but in the end the empire reclaimed most of its old territories, and although its former glory was gone, it still remained one of the greatest powers in the world. A constant war is waged against the Green Continent in the north to claim its riches. However, it has gotten to a stalemate. Huh, so there's a green continent in the north, huh? That'll be interesting if we get there, right? Alright. Economy. Present day empire does everything in its power to scrape everything it can from broken realms and dwindling natural resources. The calamity destroyed much and cursed even more. Metal is so rare that most people use substitute materials instead. Ivory, crystal, and obsidian are very popular and accessible. Lumber is also mostly unavailable. Often provinces produce several unique products or materials, and those have to be transported all around the continent. Thus, traveling traders are a key importance, and mercantilism has been on the rise since the Cataclysm. Most of the market is covered by the activities of trading houses, powerful guilds that hold a lot of power, and monopolies. You know, it would have been better if this stuff was in a different order, I think. Oh, I did not mean to go all the way up there. Where was I? History, economy, society. There it is. Alright. Let's continue. Society. While the Emperor slumbers, the 12 immortal liches rule the empire in his name. The Senate, made up of aristocrats, wealthy citizens, serves only as an advisory council, yet sometimes it can sway the rulers in ways unforeseen. Trading houses and arcane orders also hold considerable power, while the churches of the triumvirate control the major aspects of everyday life, little more than puppets for the 12 and the trio of dark gods. Most citizens eke out a living under a crushing rule, and few people can afford to rest or luxuriate. Slavery is enforced by imperial law, as it always has been. Most free citizens own slaves, and successful businesses as well as industries rely on their toil to a great extent. Religion. After the excommunication and disappearance of the elder gods in the wake of the calamity, the triumvirate emerged and offered their divine powers to help rebuild the empire. Surgarad, god of vengeance, Ashgul, god of death, and Baal-Urkal, god of treachery, thus became the new pantheon of this fallen realm, when the 12 accepted their aid. A millennia after this, the triumvirate is at its peak, and most imperial citizens worship them fervently, even if chiefly out of fear. So, okay, so there's god of vengeance, god of death, and god of treachery, and that's it. That's it. That's all there is. Alright. The Emperor. So, the Emperor's immortal and just sleeping for ever? After he ruled for 1,000 years? Right, let's see. Emperor Valen Zerverus, the immortal emperor, protector of the people, the deathless, the divine son of Zin, the king of the elder gods, has been the sovereign of the empire for over 2,000 years. Ever since his self-sacrifice during the calamity and his subsequent comatose state, he has been unable to rule. However, thus his most trusted servants, the apostles, took on the burden of governing the empire in his name. It might also behoove any historian or lore master to note that even before the calamity, his imperial majesty has been rather distant from state affairs and politics in general, and was mostly occupied with overseeing the construction of the Cathedral of Ascendance in the capital, as well as with various mysterious passion projects. Thus the apostles have been quite prepared for taking over the role of the empire in his absence. Imperial tradition states that a golden age had been going on for over 1,000 years. At the end of the Third Age, this exquisitely preposterous and blessed period occurred on behalf of the gods themselves. They were the ones who guided Valan Zavarus, the immortal emperor. Zavarus ascended to the imperial throne over 1,000 years before the calamity. Him not growing old, or in fact not aging at all, was not a natural phenomenon, and the people of the empire had started to grow suspicious at first. However, the clergy soon declared that Valan Zavarus is a direct descendant of the gods themselves, a son of Zin, the supreme god and king of the pantheon. The emperor was thus seen as a demigod, and his popularity grew exponentially in the first few decades of his rule. Supported unquestionably by the clergy, his divine majesty performed miracles on a daily basis. Refreshing political reforms, sensitive social engineering, economic boom, game-changing inventions, glorious military victories, and divine interventions were among the many things attributed to Zavarus. So, oh my gosh. The true extent of his involvement is impossible to say today, but there is no doubt that under his rule the empire rose to the greatest power in the whole world. The emperor started to withdraw from public after the first 700 years of his rule and was occupied with mysterious projects for the betterment of his empire. He was absent in the centuries prior to the calamity and only appeared to defend the people of the capital and the heartlands when the elder gods struck. His self-sacrifice saved most of these regions from arcane destruction, but the inconceivable magical energies harmed him so badly they fell into a stasis and has not woken up ever since. Most Imperials believe that the day will come when he will walk again among them and lead the Empire to a new golden age. Until then, he is slumbering in the Cathedral of Ascendance, the very site of his stand against the treacherous Elder Gods, and only the 12, as well as the highest-ranking Ashgal priest, can see him. Phew, okay. So, that's pretty cool. I'm digging the lore of this world. But this video is starting to get extremely long, so I'm going to have to stop here for our first video. And I hope people enjoy this. It's going to be a heck of a lot of reading, a lot less action, but I'm intrigued. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.